You know, for as long as we've tilled the earth, we've told stories about it. But what if the future of farming, the future of our food, doesn't depend on a new kind of tractor, but a new kind of story? Today, let's dig into how the words we use might just be the most powerful tool we have for change.
And this isn't just any story. It's something ancient, something that feels like it's hardwired into our collective DNA. It's a narrative that crosses every border, every culture, every belief system, because it's about one of our most fundamental human experiences.
That's right, the harvest. Think about it, that moment of gratitude, of coming together as a community, of celebrating that deep, fundamental connection we have to the land that feeds us.
And this is a truly global thing. I mean, from the harvest festivals in Britain that go back to pagan times, to Ethiopia's incredible Eritrea festival, from China's massive Mid-Autumn festival, to the Jewish festival of Sukkot. Celebrating the harvest is just a profoundly human thing to do. It was a story we all shared. But somewhere along the line, that story broke.
Yeah, modern agriculture kind of lost the plot. It became less about that shared story of community and connection, and a whole lot more about something else entirely. So how did that happen?
Well, the way we talk about farming pretty much split into two completely different styles. On the left, you've got what researchers call serious storytelling. Think of it as a one-way lecture. It's all facts, all data, just a simple problem with a simple solution. But on the right, you have creative nonfiction. Now, this is a conversation. It's all about the human journey, it uses emotional language, and it's not afraid to ask questions instead of just spitting out answers.
And here is a perfect example of that serious style in action. Just look at how this farmer is described. We hear about his assets, his 3,220-hectare operation, his location, his job. We learn everything about what he has, but we learn nothing about who he is. There's no personality, no struggle, no why. It's just dry data, and it totally fails to connect with us on a human level.
This quote right here, from an agricultural communicator named Mary, really gets to the heart of the problem. She says, "I purposely keep out the creative nonfiction. I think that's something that I've been taught to do." Wow. That tells you everything, doesn't it? This isn't an accident. The industry has actually been taught to avoid telling real human stories.
So who cares, right? Why does this matter? Well, it matters a lot. Because this top-down, we're the experts, you just listen approach, it just doesn't work. For starters, it completely devalues the incredible knowledge that farmers already have. It makes research organizations look like these knowledge gatekeepers instead of partners. And the end result? People tune out, they don't remember the information, and crucial new practices never get adopted. It totally ignores the fact that deciding to change how you do things is a social and cultural choice, not just a logical one.
But it's not all bad news. There is a much, much smarter way forward, and it involves pairing some really innovative new farming practices with a new and much more powerful way of talking about them.
Okay, so these new practices, they fall under this big umbrella called Climate Smart Agriculture, or CSA for short. The UN basically defines it as a way to make our entire food system greener and more resilient to climate change. The key idea here is that it's an integrated approach. It's about managing everything, our fields, our animals, our forests, our fisheries, as one big interconnected system.
And CSA is really built on three main pillars. First, sustainably increasing productivity so farmers can make a good living. Second, building up resilience so our food systems can handle the shocks of a changing climate. And third, and this is a big one, actively reducing or even removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. So the goals are awesome. The question is, how do you get people excited about it?
And that brings us right back to storytelling. Now, I know this diagram looks pretty complex, but the core idea is actually simple. A really good story sets off this incredible chain reaction in our brains. It's not just entertainment. It's a powerful tool that turns ideas into action. A great story can literally change our minds and lead to real change in the real world.
The science behind this is fascinating. It's called narrative transportation. You know that feeling when you get so lost in a good book or a movie that the world around you just kind of fades away? That's it. And when our brains are in that state, we are way more open to adopting the ideas and beliefs we're hearing in the story. We don't just process the information, we feel it.
And this isn't some new agey concept. The legendary psychologist Albert Bandura explained it perfectly. He said that when we can visualize a different future through a story, that vision acts as a motivator for us right now, in the present. In other words, a good story makes a better future feel real, tangible, and totally achievable.
Okay, so that's enough theory.
Let's get practical. Let's look at a real-world example of how these two big ideas, climate-smart farming and powerful storytelling, can come together to create some absolutely incredible change.
1 metric ton. That's how much extra carbon ranchers in Marin County, California, discovered their soil was storing per hectare every single year. And this was after just a single dusting of compost made from local green waste. Let that sink in for a second. 1 treatment, and the benefits could last for decades.
This amazing practice is a huge part of what we call carbon farming, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a way of farming that actively pulls carbon out of the atmosphere and locks it away safely in the soil and in plants. It's a total game changer in that climate-smart agriculture toolbox. And compost is an absolute superstar when it comes to carbon farming. It's so much more than just recycling your kitchen scraps. It makes plants healthier, it stops precious soil from washing away, it cuts down the need for chemical pesticides, and like we just saw, it's an absolute powerhouse at storing carbon.
This is such a great way to see one of compost's superpowers. It literally transforms dry, cracked, compacted earth into something more like a sponge. It helps the soil soak up and hold on to way more water, which makes that land so much more resilient to the wild extremes of drought and heavy rain we're seeing more and more of. And here's the best part. The whole cycle just keeps getting better and better. Healthier soil grows healthier plants with deeper, stronger roots. And guess what? Those healthier plants get even better at pulling carbon dioxide out of the air. It's this beautiful, self-reinforcing regenerative loop.
So, it seems like we've got all the pieces, right? We have the techniques, like carbon farming. We have the communication tool in creative, compelling storytelling. It feels like we have everything we need to grow a better future. But there's one last set of barriers we have to talk about. So you've got to ask, right? If the science is there and we know how to talk about it effectively, what's the holdup? Why isn't everyone already doing this?
Well, it turns out the biggest hurdles aren't technical at all. They're cultural. First, you have this deep-seated resistance, this idea that objective data is serious and important, while emotional stories are somehow flimsy and subjective. Second, there's a huge skills gap. Most scientists and communicators were never trained in how to tell these kinds of stories. And finally, we're measuring the wrong things. We judge projects by how many clicks a post got, not by whether anyone actually changed what they were doing on their land.
And that brings us to this final thought, which is captured so beautifully in this Haida proverb. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. You know, to build that better future for them, we absolutely need better farming. But as we've seen today, that's just not enough. We also have to rediscover our most ancient human skill, telling better stories. Stories that connect, that inspire, and that motivate action. So the real question is, what story will you choose to tell?